Moving on to Warlock. The first card that we see is Unstable Fellbolt. 1 mana, deal 3 damage to an enemy minion and a random friendly one. So, of course, you get to choose the enemy minion that you do the 3 damage to. But the friendly one is going to be a random one. So I'm assuming that you're going to be wanting to run this in a Zoolock, which is a deck that has a lot of smaller minions that you don't really mind dealing 3 damage to. I mean, dealing 3 damage to the enemy, dealing 3 damage to dealing 3 damage to an enemy minion, and then dealing 3 damage to a 1/1 minion that you have, maybe like a lackey, seems pretty decent to me. All for 1 mana. You could even do some combos with this as well. Maybe if you have a Death Rattle minion, it could be very good too. Yeah, this card just seems good. 1 mana for 3 damage is just very good overall. I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. Not insane, but it is very strong. Of course, it could screw you over if it hits the wrong friendly minion. You do want to narrow that down. But sometimes you won't be able to choose, and you might get unlucky. It might screw you over. But overall, it's a good card. Yeah. Next card. Come out. Moving on to the next card, we got Enhanced Dreadlord here. 8 mana, 5/7 taunt with Death Rattle. Summon a 5/5 Dreadlord with Lifesteal. So, I mean, at first glance, this card looks okay because you do get 10-12 in stats. And half of that has lifesteal pretty much. The problem is the 5/5 that you get from the Death Rattle doesn't have taunt, so it does make it quite worse. Also, if this card gets silenced, you're pretty screwed. Silenced or sapped back to your hand. 8 mana is a lot to pay for this, for like the base stats that we see here. So I don't think this card is too good at all, unless it gets buffed with the new card that Warlock got, the dormant card. I'm gonna give this card a 1 out of 5. Don't think it'll see much play at all. Moving on to the next card, 6 mana, Hand of Gul'dan. When you play or discard this, draw 3 cards. So, I mean, you're never really gonna want to play this for 6 mana, but 6 mana for 3 cards isn't the worst. We do have things like Succubus and Soulfire to discard this card. We also have Expired Merchant that could discard the highest costed card in your hand. We also do have a new Warlock card as well that discards the highest costed card. So I think this card is just, you gotta play 2 of it if you're playing Zoolock. It seems really insane. 3 cards is a lot, especially when you're just discarding this and drawing the 3 cards. I'm giving this card a 5 out of 5. It's a no-brainer for me. Let's go to the next one. Alright, and then we move on to another really insane card, Dark Glare. 3 mana, 3/4, which is already pretty good. After your hero takes damage, refresh 2 mana crystals. So, man, this card is pretty nutty, guys. In a Zoo Warlock, especially, this card is nutty. So, I mean, if you use your hero power, you get back the mana that you just used for your hero power, sure. But there are a lot of cards like Flame Imp, and there is a new 1 mana 1/4 that whenever it takes damage, you take that damage as well on your hero. So this card is going to be a little nutty. It's going to allow you to do a lot of things, play basically all the cards in your hand. Yeah, this card is just a 5 out of 5 card. No brainer again. This is, I mean, even if it didn't even have an effect, 3/4 is still good for 3 mana. And it's a demon, so it does synergize with other things as well. This card is just really good. Yeah, I foresee Zoolock is going to be running 2 of these without a doubt. Okay, on to the next card, Nightshade Matron. 4 mana 5/5 demon with Rush. Battlecry, discard your highest costed card. So, I mean, 4 mana 5/5 is very good already. Rush makes it very good. Of course, you have to discard a card, so it might not be as good, but especially with the Hand of Gul'dan that we now have, this card is going to be pretty nutty. And also, if you have no cards in your hand, it just gets really, really good as well. I'm gonna give this card a 5 out of 5. This is the card that you're going to be running 2 of course, in a Zoolock deck. Yeah. The first Warlock legendary that we see here, the 2 mana 3/2, Kenrathod Ebonlock. Say that 5 times fast. Your demons cost 1 less while it's on the board, of course. Death Rattle, shuffle Kenrathod Prime into your deck. So we see Kenrathod Prime on the right there. 8 mana 7/6. Battlecry, summon 3 friendly demons that died this game. So, I mean, that seems pretty good at first glance, but you have to think about what kind of deck you're running this in. And we're assuming that if you're playing demons, you're probably playing a more aggressive deck like Zoo. So the demons that you're gonna get back with the prime might not be as good as if you're playing a more control-ish deck, but I think overall you're still going to get decent stuff. I mean, we just saw some pretty decent demons before. This card, for example, is very good to get back. It's a 4-mana 5/5 rush, and then you could get Dark Glare back, which could make your opponent have to clear things like that before you can go off with the other cards. So I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. I think it's very good. It's not anything crazy. This is probably the worst prime out of the primes that we've seen, but I think it's still very strong overall. I mean, even the 2-mana card that we see right here is pretty strong. Discounting your demons could allow you to get a pretty nutty first couple of turns there if they don't deal with that. So I think it's a very strong card. Even if you whiff on some big demons with the prime, you should still be looking pretty good there. Another Warlock legendary, Caladan the Breaker. 6-mana 3/3, battle cry, destroy a minion if drawn this turn. Instead, destroy all minions except this one. So pretty powerful effect if you draw it this turn. It could be used with cards like Plot Twist to shuffle the cards into your deck. And then if you draw this, if you're desperate for a board clear, it's a nice 6-mana board clear. I think this card is very strong overall. You can compare it to something like Flick, which sees a lot of play. It's a 6-mana 4/4 with an upside if your opponent has multiple copies of it. So this card does have a very strong upside. Will you need that upside all the time? I'm not sure. 6-mana 3/3 destroy minions seems pretty good overall. It's above average, but I think having that potential upside to just swing the whole game in your direction, it's gonna make this card a 4.5 out of 5 for me. Moving on to Imprisoned Scrap Imp. 2-mana 3/3 demon. Dormant for 2 turns. When this awakens, give all minions in your hand +2/+2. So this is not going to be run in a faster deck like Zoo. This should be run in a more control-y deck, maybe like Handlock. This card does seem pretty powerful, especially if you are playing Handlocked. You're going to have a lot of minions in your hand, a lot of minions to get buffed by this. It does take a little while to get going, but I think you should be able to hold off the early aggression with the tools that Warlock has, like Sack Pact and everything. So I will give this card a 3.5 out of 5. Not completely sure if I'm sold on the Dormant yet, but I think overall it's a pretty solid card. +2/+2 does seem like a lot, especially when you're hitting 3 or more targets. You know what? I'm going to bump it up to a 4 out of 5. It seems very good on paper. We'll see if it's as good when the expansion comes out, but I think this card seems playable enough. The stats are pretty decent as well, so you're not really losing out on too much here. Okay, next card that we see here is Shadow Council. 1 mana, replace your hand with random demons, give them +2/+2. So this card seems like a meme to me. I don't really think it's going to see play at all. Kind of reminiscent of Renounced Darkness. Of course, this is completely different effects, but Renounced Darkness was a meme card that didn't get played at all. But sure, you could try it out. It might work for you sometimes. You could totally just low roll demons and lose the game instantly. Or if you high roll demons, you could actually win the game. So it's not a complete meme card, but it's pretty memey. I don't think you need it at all. You're probably not going to want to replace the cards that you chose to put into your deck for specific reasons. So I'm going to give it a 1 out of 5. I think it's unplayable, but maybe you could prove me wrong. I don't know. Last card of Warlock, the Dark Portal. 4 mana, draw a minion. If you have at least 8 cards in your hand, it costs 5 less. So, I mean, the first thing that we think of is Handlock. This card seems pretty decent. It depends on what cards you're really running in your deck. I mean, if you're running something like this 2 mana card, then that does make this card worse because you're not going to be wanting to discount something that's less than 5 mana. So it does make your deck building a little more complicated. You have to think about how many lower costed things you want to run in there. But I think this card is decent overall, depending on your deck. I'm not sure how it's going to be until I play test with it, but I'll give it a 3.5 out of 5. It seems good, but yeah, no, never mind. Alright. I'm going to give this card a 4 out of 5. I think it's strong. 5 discount on a card seems very good, especially if you are playing this, if you're able to play this pretty early on. It could do some pretty nutty things, especially if you're in like a control matchup and you get to tap the first few turns and get at least those 8 cards in there. This could potentially give you something crazy. I think this card is very good overall. Yeah. Cool.